right, welcome back. Miss Need here, and we are still adding and subtracting fractions. So we went over how to add fractions with the same denominators, right? So the same denominator, this has, what that's telling us is how many pieces the whole has been cut into, so that's going to remain the same. What's happening on top is telling us what portion is shaded, or what portion are we looking at here. So 2 plus 1 is 3, and that is how we do that. Now, we need to find a way to add fractions with different denominators. Okay, so we are going to change the problem into one you have already seen and know how to do. So, what do we know how to do? We know how to add fractions with the same denominator, and we know how to change fractions into ones with the same denominator. So we know how to add any pair of fractions because we know how to do those two things. So what am I going to do first? I am going to figure out how to find the same denominator, and we do that by finding the multiples, right? So what I'm going to do is get you to pause and just do that right now. All right, so I got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, right? And down here I have 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, gonna stop. Now I skip count on the top. 3, 6, 9, 12, and I skip count by ones, which is really just counting. Okay, so let's get. All right, so we found the multiple in the denominator that is common, right? The lowest common multiple in the denominator. And now we can add them. So what does this look like? Well, 1/3 can now be written as 5/15 because they're equivalent. And I can write 3/5 as 9/15 because they are equivalent. Okay, and now I'm going to add them. So 15 stays the same, and then 9 plus 5 is 14. Now, what if I didn't want to add them, but I wanted to subtract them? So I have 3/5 minus 1/3. All right, so I have 3/5 minus 1/3. I'm going to use the same method. You find the same common multiple in the denominator, right? So this would be 9/15 is equivalent to 3/5 minus 5/15, which is equivalent to 1/3, and then I can just subtract. Okay, so by finding the first fraction here, in each list with the same denominator, you're finding the lowest number that is a multiple of both denominators. Do you know the name of this number? Right? It's the lowest common multiple, right? We've talked about the lowest common multiple. When else have you used the lowest common multiple of the denominators of fractions? So hopefully remember, we used that when we were comparing fractions. So we would find two fractions with the same denominator, and then we could compare the two and say which one's bigger and which one's smaller, right? So because the lowest common multiple of the denominators are so useful when comparing and working with fractions, right? Adding, subtracting, comparing, mathematicians don't want to have to say that all of those words. So they shortened it a little bit and they became a little bit more specific. So this, we don't say we're finding the lowest common multiple of the denominator. We say we are finding the lowest common, same as the beginning, right? But we name denominator, because that is what we're finding. We're finding the lowest common denominator. Okay. Now, we are going to reduce fractions to their lowest terms. Now, I'm just going to do a quick one down here. So what if I had, I'm not going to do that one first. What if I had 1 third. Okay, this is already in its lowest terms because I can only divide each one by 1, right? Same as if I had 2/3. I could still only divide the top and bottom by 1 because if I look at the factors for 2 and 3, the factors are 1 and 2, right? And 1 and 3. So the lowest or the greatest common factor, coming back, right? Greatest common factor between these two numbers is 1. What if, I'm gonna erase this. What if I wanted to find how to reduce 8/10? What is the lowest common factor between these two? Or the greatest common factor. Sorry, I keep saying the wrong thing. So 4 and 8, right? Because 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. And then I have 1, 2, 5, 10. And I have that there. Now, what's common between the two is the 2's, right? So I know I can divide the top by 2. And I can divide the bottom by 2. And that's going to give me 4 over 5. And I cannot reduce this fraction anymore because these two numbers, their greatest common factor, the numbers that multiply together to get these numbers, is 1. So it is now said to be in its lowest terms. All right, going to make some space. Okay, now what if we're working with really large numbers? Okay, we get to use our mental math strategies. Okay, so I know that these are ending in 0, so I know that I can divide both of these by 10. So I can just do that super quickly. Now, I also know that I can divide both of these by 5. So I know that the greatest common multiple between these two is going to be 15 because 75 divided by 5 is going to be 15. And I know that 70 divided by 5 is going to be 14. Okay, and these numbers, the greatest common multiple between these numbers is 1. So I know I have reduced the fraction to its lowest term because the only thing I can divide by is 1. Okay. All right, so I think that's it for that. Now I would like you to go, before you move on to the next section, just go and practice doing this on the worksheet, pause the video, and then come back and finish it off. So we're going to just add and subtract some fractions, right? Just reviewing what we've learned. So what is the first step? Find the lowest common denominator. So let's do that here. I have 6 and I have 10. And so pause the video. I want you to find that lowest common denominator. All right. So I know that the lowest common multiple between the two is 30. And so I have multiplied 6 by 5, so I'm going to multiply the 1 by 5, which is going to give me 5, and I've multiplied the bottom by 3, so I'm going to multiply the top by 3. Okay, the denominator remains the same, and I'm just going to add those, and that's 8. Okay, so then I'm going to do this to this side as well, and I know that my common multiple on the bottom, the lowest common denominator, is going to be 15. Okay, and I've multiplied this one by 3, and so I'll multiply the top by 3, which gives me 6. Over here, I just multiplied by 1, so it remains the same. And now I'm going to subtract. So I have 13 minus 6, which is 7 over 15. Now, if I have a quick look here, is this in its lowest form? That's our next step. Then reduce the answer to your lowest terms. Have I done that? Yes, I have, because the only factor that can go into both is 1. If I look over here, is this reduced to its lowest terms? And I'm going to say no, because I know that I can divide both of these by 2. And that would be equal to 4 and 15. And if I reevaluate and wonder if I can reduce it anymore, I can have a look, and I know that the lowest or the greatest common factor between these two numbers is 1, and so I know that I am in my lowest terms. All right, so please complete the worksheet. Make sure you're understanding. If you are not understanding, you have questions, I've also emailed your parents a answer key to this, so to your worksheet, so please check in with your parents to see if you can mark your paper. And if you're not understanding how to do something, you must come to the help sessions.